Hi guys, good afternoon and welcome to edition number 2 as my next victim here. My wife, Melissa Fair, is with us, and we are actually doing this video from our hotel room in Tennessee, downtown Nashville, as we're getting ready to fly out tonight back home to California, where we can see you guys all again this coming Sunday. And so we just wanted to take a minute. Again, this little segment has been called Getting to Know You, Getting to Know All About You. And that's all we're trying to do here is me interview people and just let everyone get to know a little bit more about each one of us. And where did that little jingle come from? My wife probably remembers where that jingle came from.
Yes, when we were in Israel, they went ahead and did some icebreakers, and there was a game that they called Getting to Know You, and every time some of the clues were read, that song was sang through the entire bus.
And so it kind of rang in our head, and I like it, you know, and thank you, John Jones, for giving us this little insight. But we do this for two reasons, not just because we want people to get to know each other, but really because Jesus gives us this commandment in John chapter 13 at verse 34. He says, "A new commandment I give to you, that you love one another, even as I have loved you, that you also love one another." And then he goes on to say in verse 35, he says, "By this all men will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another." And so this is an act of love, because in order to love someone, you have to get to know them. And so that's what we're trying to do here as well. And the Apostle Paul says this about getting to know you. It's hard to say that without thinking of the little jingle. Romans chapter 12, verse 10, Paul says this. He says, "Be devoted to one another in brotherly love. Give preference to one another in honor, not lagging behind in diligence, fervent in spirit, serving the Lord, rejoicing in hope, persevering in tribulation, devoted to prayer, contributing to the needs of the saints, and practicing hospitality." But what did he say there? To give preference to one another in honor. And so that's what we're doing here. We're giving preference to one another by giving people an opportunity to share a little bit about what God is doing in their lives. And so my wife here, again, Melissa Fair, and I'm going to give her the same 3 questions that I plan to use as the springboard into every conversation. And so the first question, of course, is what led us, I feel like I have to say you, but really it's us, what led us to Tehachapi? God's leading to Tehachapi. How did all that happen?
Gerald had been working already in Tehachapi, but we were still living in San Bernardino. And he was making that commute as we were newlyweds and had just found out not too long before that we were pregnant with Caitlin. And so it was kind of taking a toll on us as a family already and as a couple. And he finally was going ahead and given the opportunity and told that he would be kind of working in that area for at least the next 10 years, if not longer. So he went ahead and came home and told me the information, and we started looking. At the time he was working a lot in Palmdale, but that was way too hot and he wasn't really wanting to live there, so he had been to Tehachapi for another job along with the same company. And so he really fell in love with Tehachapi and took me one weekend to show me, and that was it. We were pretty much sold and had to find our house there. We didn't realize obviously at the time that God had a different job in mind for that relocation. But yeah, that was pretty much what led us to Tehachapi, was because of a job relocation and kind of an opportunity for us as a couple and as a family. You know, we thought it was a great area, obviously, to raise a family. San Bernardino would be a little iffy. So we weren't sure about that one, but yeah, God gave us that opportunity. And then, of course, brought us to Calvary Chapel Tehachapi, where we served for quite a few years, just volunteering.
How long ago, remind me, how long ago did we move to Tehachapi?
Oh, goodness, that would be
15 or 16 years?
That would be 13.
13 years.
13 years, October 13th.
Yeah, so 13 years ago. Crazy. Yeah, because Caitlin's 12.
And I was pregnant.
Yeah.
We had just found out we were pregnant with Caitlin at the time when we moved up. So yeah.
So then that kind of leads into the second question, as you were already kind of leading there. So we found Calvary Chapel Tehachapi. Our marriage at the time was struggling. You were away from home, from your mom, from your parents, from other family, pregnant, new environment. I was working a lot of hours. Insane hours. And so there was a little bit of tension there. And so we reached out and we went to Calvary Chapel.
Yes.
And sat there. And how did you feel about Calvary Chapel? Because I had attended a Calvary Chapel before, but you'd never been in a Calvary Chapel. So describe and explain, our roots. How did we get plugged in here at Calvary Chapel Tehachapi?
For me, again, because it wasn't something I was used to, and so it was different. We had gone to another church, a couple of them in Tehachapi. As we were trying to find, our home church, because we knew we needed something to help us, and we had kind of tried everything else, and none of that was working. And those churches for me, as I was not a believer at the time, and so I would leave there very confused and with a million questions all the way home, bugging you. And so we finally found Calvary Chapel Tehachapi. And for me, the first time that I went, it clicked. It made sense. It was like the messages were being spoken directly to me. So much to the point that once you started talking to the pastor, I thought you were telling him very personal things about us. But it was just God speaking to me, because the fact that it went book by book and chapter by chapter and verse by verse, it made it so much easier. And so as I followed along, I didn't feel lost. I didn't feel confused. It clicked. So
And when you say you weren't a believer, you had some knowledge of God, but you weren't.
I did, but I
surrendered.
I didn't fully understand what that meant.
Right.
To go ahead and really be. I mean, I knew the Lord. I knew God.
Right.
But to really call myself a believer, now looking back, I'm like, I should not have called myself that at the time.
Okay, so now what are we now? Fast forward. That was, I remember getting plugged in right away, serving. You actually took your first, and it's funny, I didn't want to start serving. I wanted to sit in the church, and she actually was the one who wanted to start serving on the cleaning crew and doing that sort of stuff. So that was kind of your introduction into ministry. Yeah,
because I didn't think I had any actual gifts. But I knew I could scrub a toilet, so I figured, okay, I could do that.
And then you surrendered your life to Christ shortly after that, and were baptized there in Herman and Lisa's pool, like I heard Bob's message last night, and hopefully Bob's not getting baptized again with this next baptism.
He probably will.
And so then, we kind of got steady into the church, and, so describe now, that was 10 years, 11 years in the making. And then, you've done a lot in children. Describe a little bit about the things you've done in the church.
Oh, goodness.
Goodness,
I started with the cleaning crew. Although at first there was no crew, it was me by myself on a Saturday, which was...
And Norm would let you in.
Norm would go ahead and unlock the church and let me in and tell me when he would be back to close up, but didn't tell me where any supplies were or where anything was, and or any noises to expect. And there's a lot of noises in the church when you're by yourself. But so started there. Then there finally were actual crews, as then there were other people who were leading the cleaning crew. And so we actually had like teams of people, which was much easier, much better. And then eventually those people would step down, and so then we actually stepped into lead the cleaning crew. And we did that for a bit, and then helped the next set of people kind of go ahead and start to lead the cleaning crew.
Was that Donna and
Joaquin, as we had then stepped into the children's ministry, because I was also serving in the children's ministry on Sundays. At the time, just with the babies. Again, I figured I could change diapers, And so, yeah, from there, then we started leading the children's ministry. But you were also kind of all over the place with doing announcements and accounting. And so it was kind of me leading the children's ministry on Sundays a lot. And that's a tough spot. It is. Anybody who's children's ministry knows that's a lot. Even when you're, Sunday school teacher, and the youth leaders, because we also then did Thursday nights with the youth, and
that was our first time really getting to do Bible study with the kids.
Absolutely. And those nights when you had to work late, and then it was up to me to go ahead and lead. Ooh, okay.
God was preparing you and stretching you.
Right, absolutely. Every time I start to feel comfortable, he'd push me a little further out of the nest, and but he would always prepare me. I just didn't think I was prepared. So.
And then you kind of got tuned in with the women's ministry, and again, it's sounding fast, but this is all stretched over 11 years.
It did feel really fast.
It was fast. It still is fast. So then women's ministry, how did that come about? Didn't Galen, I think it was, ask you to be on the women's ministry? Or?
Well, I had always helped kind of with the women's events, to go ahead and set up, take down, clean up, kind of run around like a chicken with your head cut off, whatever it was.
You were
kind
good
of
at
needed.
that.
I am.
You were the gopher.
I'm still pretty good at being a gopher.
Go for this. Go for that. Go for this.
So, but yeah, then I believe it was Galen who asked me if I wanted to be a part of they were kind of putting together a team for the women's ministry, and if I wanted to be a part of that. And so I prayed about it along with Gerald and decided to go ahead and be a part of that. And it was kind of nice to go ahead and have it be an actual team of ladies, because then you could have different ideas, and you kind of voted on things and had different ideas from other ladies that maybe I talked to here and there, but not real in depth. So I didn't know maybe what more ladies were needing or wanting, and they didn't either on the other side. So it worked really well. Yeah,
and so you've incorporated that into the women's ministry now, because you're heading the women's ministry.
Right. And I didn't want it to be just me. I didn't want it to be just my ideas, because again, I know that although I try to talk to everybody I can in the church, I don't always get to have real in-depth conversations sometimes, because sometimes being a gopher.
It's a ministry. It's a ministry.
Right. So,
so that's all good stuff. And then along those times, I was kind of coming up the ranks, or down the ranks, you may say, as well as deacon, and then kind of administrator, assistant pastor role, which was a big step for us. That's when we actually stepped out into full-time ministry, and left my job, and that's a whole nother story. But then a pastor or an elder on the board, then pastor, then interim pastor, and then senior pastor. So just kind of a crazy time for us, but God has been faithful through all of it, taking us beyond things that we could ever have imagined, and seen us through some difficult times. But those are all refining processes. Right. God often teaches us things by taking us through them. It's one thing for somebody to tell you about things, but until you go through it, you just know just how true God is and how faithful God is through all of it. So the last question here, as our timekeeper over here, is he paying attention to the time?
Yes.
Where are we at?
13 minutes.
Oh, wow, we got a little bit of time. Good. Zachary's over there taking care of the time, and Caitlin, I think, is still taking a shower. So the last question here is, where do you see the church moving forward? Obviously, churches are faced with difficult decisions right now. Should we open? Should we not open? Should we be indoors? Should we be outdoors? Should we wear masks? Should we not wear masks? What are we doing? How do you feel, as my wife, as the pastor's wife, as the leader of the women's ministry, how do you feel about the direction that we feel God is leading us?
I think that, obviously, I know a lot of the behind the scenes.
Yeah.
So I know how much prayer there's been in what direction to go, and a lot of discussion. And I know everybody's kind of ideas have been taken into account, not just board members, or not even just leadership. when we say we're a church family, we're a church family.
Yeah.
So we really try to hear our family and where their concerns are and where their worries are. And, I think that we've gone ahead and been really faithful, and especially in the beginning when nobody knew exactly what was going to take place or how. We went ahead and thank God, he set us up ahead of time with a great video setup. And
that was only like 4 months in.
Absolutely. And an amazing team like Andy and Brent and Corey to put all of that together and make it all function. I mean, it's amazing that
and
we're
adding worship into it.
Absolutely.
Toby and Lana,
and Andy figuring out all the editing and everything else. I mean, what a blessing to go ahead and be able to have that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, once it came time to the point of us really talking and thinking about opening, that was really kind of an uncertain time.
Yeah.
But, we turned to the Lord, and we're praying constantly to go ahead and see which direction's ahead. And I think we've been really good about being faithful to God, to not go ahead and just fully open, with no precautions, no anything. I mean, anybody who's been into our church knows, we have every other row, blocked off for seating. We recommend that you wear a mask, but we're not requiring unless you are a greeter or, doing the coffee, or the people who are setting up communion, things of that sort. The amount of sanitizing and cleaning that's taking place.
Phil and George coming in 3 times a week to re-sanitize everything.
Absolutely. And then even after worship and after the break, Phil and I taking our turns and going into the restrooms to, again, clean and sanitize and wipe down. And, and then the amount of sanitizer, I think, around in general, the hand sanitizers. I mean, there's hand sanitizer everywhere throughout the church.
I think we're doing a good job with.
I think we've been very faithful.
Yeah, with even the contact, and that's what she was saying. The greeters, if you've been to the church, and the coffee and the communion, anything that is transferring one thing to a person to person or points of contact, those people are required by the church to wear face masks, and some of them gloves, like Phil or Stella and Linda in the coffee bar.
Yeah. And then even we have outdoor seating now too, where Brent went ahead and hooked up an amazing sound system on the outside, so people have that option. And then I think that's another thing too, is I really like the fact that there are options
Diversity.
for our churches, because
and online
we have church family who have not even come back to church fully in person yet.
Yeah.
They're part of us online, but other than that, we haven't actually seen them face to face yet. And so the fact that we have all the different options, I've been very impressed personally. But again, I'm maybe biased. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, and then the last question, I'm going to sneak one in here. Question number 4. What has
3 questions.
What has been your favorite part of trip here to Tennessee, and why did we come to Tennessee?
Goodness, we came to Tennessee because we have amazing friends here who really are family. I even told some people at their church that they attend now, we've been blessed by the fact that they basically adopted us, as a family.
Yeah.
And, getting to go ahead and see them and spend time, with Pat and Teresa and people who used to attend our church, and when they come back to Tehachapi and visit, they still come to our church.
Just like we go to their church here in Tennessee.
Absolutely, and they follow along with us online and listen to all this craziness too. But I would have to say my favorite thing, besides just getting to even see them, was just cruising along on the Tennessee River on the boat. It's very peaceful, very quiet. It's beautiful. I mean, you are surrounded by nothing other than God's creation. I mean, there's no signals out there for your phone, so you're not being distracted by anything. It's just family time. That was it.
What about you being drugged behind the boat on the inflatable tube?
I will say that I was very sore the next day when I woke up.
And I didn't post the video of her tumbling off, but before she tumbled off, she actually was able somehow, I've never seen this before in my life, to fall off but plug her nose as she's skipping across the water. Very impressive. Only my wife never ceases to amaze me. We had a great time, and thank you guys for letting us get away. And you know, our kids enjoyed it a lot, getting out there on the river. Zachary catching his first fish, and Caitlin getting the grandpappy slappy treatment, and we just had a great time. And so thank you guys for your prayers and for letting us get away. Thank you, Eric and Bob, for covering the pulpit, and Marcella and Stella with the women's ministry. And you know, we're blessed, and so we appreciate you guys letting us do that. So that's it for this edition of Getting to Know You, getting to know all about you. And so hopefully you know a little bit more about us, and we will continue to have people back periodically and talk about different things. So be well, may God bless you and keep you, and we will see you soon. Bye.